From exec session, we are in open session right now, and we will start with the pledge. Albert has his food, so we're ready to go. And we will stand while we pledge, and Brad will lead us.
Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome everybody. So we have a few guests with us today, and they're not sitting on the floor, but we're back from exec, as I said, and Brad, do we have any modifications?
Not to my knowledge.
Very good. So the agenda is as it appears, and we will go through it. And we're very happy to have the Village of Ithaca here to start us off. So Karen, please.
Thank you. And one correction, Village at Ithaca. And so thank you all for allowing us to present about our Summer Achievement Program. And our mission for the, it's over here. The Village at Ithaca is over here on this projector here. But my name is Karen Yarrow, Executive Director, and this is Lauren Wright, who will introduce herself shortly. She's an ICSD educator. So our mission is stated there for you to read, but we've had our Summer Achievement Program. This is going into our 7th annual year, our 7th year, and it started July 9th. Our Summer Achievement Program, we started in 2012, and we increased numbers by 500%. It offers 20 hours total per student, academic enrichment, and we cover several subject areas: math, SAT, ACT prep, and we focus on grades 2nd through 12th grade. We have community members as achievement coaches, volunteer. We work with students within the Ithaca City School District. 80% of our students are from Ithaca City School District. We do also reach out to other areas within Tompkins County. And as you see from the numbers, how we've grown within the Summer Achievement Program. And 80, as I said, 80%. But one main thing that we've seen crucial is a program educator. We have an ICSD staff member over the 6 years that we did this as a program educator. And we've had Michelle Blake, Crystal Sessoms, and Lauren Wright was our program educator last year. And the connection with the school district is important to look at the programs that we're offering to ensure students are academically sound. And it's not only for students that may need remediation, but students that want to get ahead of their next year. And we have a few testimonies which the board would have looked at our slide presentation. But one awareness that came to our attention last year was that there is no remediation for middle school students during the summer if a student did not pass their required subject areas. So the importance of remediating a middle school student, as well as just reaching out to ensure there is no summer slide.
All right. So my name is Lauren Wright. I am currently a technology integration specialist for the district. I taught at the high school, social studies and AVID for several years prior to this school year. Last year I served as the program educator for the Summer Achievement Program, and I was really able to see the value of this program and how it was able to help a number of our students and families. And so some of the things that I worked on was recruitment, using my connections within the school to recruit not only students to receive tutoring services, but also recruiting students from the high school, from Link Crew, AVID, and National Honor Society to serve as achievement coaches, students who are looking for volunteer opportunities. So that was a really great thing that we were able to do to connect students with that chance to help younger students. We also tied the content and the materials that students were working on to things that the district valued. So making sure that students were using material that was appropriate to their grade level and tied to Common Core standards, and using programs that we know are being used during the school year to continue with that. And then we also focused on making sure that we connected families and homes with the work that students were doing during that program. So they were able to receive a report of things that they worked on during the summer, and then we could also talk with their teachers and find out what areas did they need to focus on, and then report back at the end of the summer what progress did they make for the upcoming school year. So it was a great opportunity, and I think that the program will continue to benefit from having that relationship with the district, having an educator who is in that role.
So our request is to the board and to the administration here is to have continued partnership as we were fulfilling the requirements of the Equity Strategic Plan, which is the school district's plan, but to ensure that financial commitment. We operate through the village at Ithaca on a shoestring budget, and we want that commitment for a program educator to be able to have someone, your staff member, be paid by the school district. So we thank you for the continued partnership. I just wanted to bring to your attention this testimony from a caregiver that was talking about her student that failed several academic courses last June, and then how the student had much success during the summer, which continued on because we do an evaluation during the school year too, to see how the student has progressed. So, and that's our request and our continued support of the from the school district. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Any questions for Braxton?
Is that a position we're currently paying for, and you're just
No.
asking to continue it? No. This is to pick up a position.
To pick up a position, I know
How's it been funded in the past?
it's been funded through the village,
Through the
through our
village.
general operating expenses. And I have made the request previously to see if there's a way that we can get an administrator funded through the school district.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? Thanks, Village at Ithaca. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
And Bridget, you made it through the crowd. All right. And you brought us books. You're up. Go
Good
ahead.
evening, school board members and
Yeah.
administrators and community members.
Yeah, don't feel you have to speak to the microphone.
Okay.
That's not for our benefit.
Okay, I will do my own amplifying now that I know that.
Yes, exactly.
I'm Bridget Berman, and I am involved with a national literacy organization that is very new and is based in Ithaca, New York. And all of our work is really around building community literacy initiatives that are innovative and that can be shared across the country. So that just gives you that little context. But I come with an invitation this evening for you to read a book. This book. And I really believe that this book could change and transform our educational system. And that's why you're finding it all around the community. The idea of this book is to have it be not just a book, but so far beyond that, to be a catalyst and a connector, that we connect together and think about how do we make sure that everyone knows that words are essential to children for their healthy growth and development, that we want to really shine light and lift all families and caregivers and community members toward that. So we have the invitation and just some beautiful pictures of babies and books, and inviting everyone to be involved in this. There are lots of locations in the community where you can find books, and hope you'll be involved.
Thanks, Bridget. So I guess I have to read a book. There's not 30 million. Oh, okay. Sorry.
There aren't 30 million
Okay,
words.
thank
Actually,
That's it. So, on to, as far, according to my agenda, we're into public comment period. So, was it a month ago? It was a few meetings ago we had a big group. We are more than happy to hear from the community and encourage it. So we gave wide latitude to that meeting. believe it or not, we have a policy regarding public comment period. And I normally leave policy to Sean, but we do have a policy and a procedure to ensure that we can hear from as many people as possible in the time that we have. Typically on our agenda, and has been that way for years, we have 30 minutes for public comment period. We give that to everyone. And typically people don't talk when I'm talking, but that's okay. But so after we will see where we are at the end of 30 minutes, and then the board has the option to go ahead. A motion will have to be made to extend, just so you know what's going to happen. So as we work through the list, when we get to 30 minutes, when we do start, then the board will stop, and a motion will be made, and then a vote will be taken, and then we can move on, or not. So we will try to get through as many people as we can in the next 30 minutes. It is 3 minutes per person. We ask that you keep to that 3 minutes per person. You're just taking time away from that next person. If you have a letter that you wish to read that was written by someone else, feel free to submit that to the board clerk. One of the few requirements of being on the Board of Education is they have to be able to read. So we can read. We get a lot of information. So we're more than happy to read it. We read everything. So we're more than happy to hear from your words whatever you want to impart to us. Speakers may, reading from the policy, speakers may comment on any matter related to school district business. The board cannot and will not, I will say this again, the board cannot and will not permit public discussions involving individual district personnel or students. That is the rule. That is how it works. So from there, it's really whatever you want to talk about, and you've got 3 minutes, and it's going to be a hard stop. 3 minutes is a long time. So don't feel you have to fill it up. Feel free to have time for the next speaker. And we're going to go ahead and get started. It's on the agenda, and we're starting at, you can see the clock, so we're going to go for half an hour. And Sean will lead the charge here.
And I should say before we begin that process, if folks have a problem with that policy, know that I was the chair of the policy committee that passed that policy, and we try to pass policies that aren't issue specific, but that try to think about a number of ways in which folks come to speak to the board. And so the 30 minutes was set for a particular reason. Not that the board can extend that, either in the moment or for that rest of the comment period to be put at the end of the board meeting, because there may be other things that need to be taken to. So I just want folks to sort of understand that. Also, it's an invitation to come join us at the policy committee meeting when we pass these kind of policies to give us additional feedback. But there was a rationale. I'd be happy to explain to folks why that policy was put in place back in 2012.
I was just imparting whatever Sean put in the policy.
With the committee of folks and community folks as well.
Exactly.
I understand we're going to make some changes. I understand that the students are going to speak first as much as possible, and then we'll get to the names that are on the list, and so if that works for folks. But at 30 minutes, we'll check with the board and see what we're going to do next. Does that make sense? Jennifer, I don't know if you're keeping the 3 minutes here. Fantastic. Up first on the list is Ella.
Sorry, just keep you. Okay, so. I am here as a representative of students made of Ithaca. My name is Annabella Meade Fancourt, or Ella. I am here today because we are so thankful that the board is addressing issues of safety. It is long overdue. We want to extend our heartfelt condolences to the young people and their families that were affected by the horrible tragedy in Florida. We are particularly happy that people are addressing the incredibly important issue of school safety. We are going to be addressing the issue of safety and critical actions that ICSD can take to ensure the safety of all their students. And my classmates will say that as follows. Thank you.
If you all know your order, then
Yeah,
you can
please go.
Ari, feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, you're just wasting time.
My name is Cummings, and I'm one of the student leaders of Students United Ithaca. About 3 weeks ago, right-wing news outlets got a hold of our story and started telling a way to fit the eyes of their viewers. They told our story in negative ways and made us seem like racists ourselves. This led to many right-wing groups sending threats to our group, and some threats to my fellow leaders personally. After these threats came out, we expected protection and conversation to arise at our school. This did not happen. No one at the school really knows what's going on. The threats to Students United Ithaca and our families and our homes needs to be mentioned. It needs to be talked about. The administration is not having meetings with students to talk about the real issue. They are saying to all students, if you don't feel safe, come talk to us. But they aren't telling anyone why. They are acting like this is any other month. Some of us have gotten comments from other students that they don't feel safe at the school and it's our fault. This is because no one is speaking about what's actually going on. The students aren't safe because white supremacist groups are threatening us. That's what's going on. This is not our fault. We are not the threat. Why are teachers coming up to me and saying, I wish we could talk about this more, but we can't? It's clear to us that the administration is telling teachers they can't talk about the topic in a public way. Why is this happening? We need to talk about what's going on. The administration needs to allow us to talk about what's going on. We need education and structured conversation on race, and we need this to happen right away. By allowing this conversation to happen, we will move one step closer to school unity and to kids being educated on race. It's not going to fix everything, but it'll bring us one step closer. Your job as educators is to educate. You aren't doing that. You are creating misunderstanding, which is the foundation of racism. You need to allow this conversation to happen. You need to allow this one step further towards unity. You need to stop preventing change. Please, please start this conversation. As I speak on this topic, it makes me think about the tragic event that happened in Florida a week ago. When I first heard of the school shooting, the only thing that went through my head was that I wouldn't know what to do in that situation. This is another subject that the school has failed to educate the students on. I'm a junior at Ithaca High School, and I have never once had a lockdown drill or spoken to about what to do in a school shooting situation. You are educators. Educate. Thank you.
First, I want to say a quote that was in the Ithaca Journal. We appreciate the conversation they have sparked regarding the need to have a more culturally responsive and inclusive school district. We will work diligently to meet their needs and the needs of all students. As I've said many times to students and adults in our community, conversations that lead to the transformations of systems will attract conflict. However, conflict will lead to innovation. I am honored to be on this journey as we build towards a more inclusive community. That was said by Dr. Brown. Hi, my name is Eamon Nunn Makepeace, and I am one of the 5 leaders of Students United Ithaca. And let me just say, I am sick and tired of the lack of conversation and education on race our school has. The things that I have been experiencing during this movement, the hate, the threats on my life, they all come from the lack of race education in every school system. Why can't we change that? Why can't we change the way our school talks about race? Or in most cases, let's make it an actual conversation. The story I'm about to share happened to me outside the house that I'm staying at. I was jogging outside the house when a blue, very new Chevy truck with 4 white Cornell students drove by, slowed down, rolled down their window, and said, "There's that theater nigger right there." See, there's the issue. Obviously the lack of race education in their school years, but we have the chance to change and have an opportunity to educate the children in our school. So what happened to me won't happen to any other black kid who just decides to go for a job. When we don't educate on these issues, that's when your students get hurt. Thank you.
We skipped Nia and...
Yeah, Nia's coming next. Nia's going. I'm going to read to move quickly. After I'm done with you, you'll be swinging from a tree. Again, I'll personally kill you, nigger. These are just a few messages sent or posted about my son online from Valentine's Day. After this information was shared with school officials, I heard from 3 people both black and that I would consider conscious. Board members Dr. Sean Eversley Bradwell and Ms. Nicole Lefebvre, as well as IHS AP Ms. Crystal Sessoms. Their care, concern for my son's safety, and genuine compassion has been extremely comforting. But in the high school, outside of Miss Sessoms and his own grandfather, we've heard nothing, and from no one, about these threats to my son's life. The threats bring up a significant level of historic trauma that no one, especially no child, should have to endure. As it relates to safety, I think a shooting drill and a reality check is critical to work with the police, but I want to be clear that I am not advocating for more uniformed police officers in our schools. This issue that I'm bringing up and want to bring to the board and to Dr. Brown is actually about the silence. Ithaca High School and other schools here in Ithaca are silenced communities that don't even really function like communities. No one's talking or teaching as a collective. The word nigger is in books, in the curriculum, and no one knows what to do with it. Teachers are constantly teachers are constantly falling flat on fragile faces. Our students end up in the hallways, at lunch, and on buses, fully engaged in the conversation about the use of the word, but with no tools, no guidance whatsoever. It is educational neglect. It is extremely violent to incorporate such language with no education. Within this silenced community, Dr. Brown, last time we were all here, you named it explicitly. You named the fact that you are leading an institutionally racist district. This is such an important thing to say out loud. And my question, can you also name how the curriculum in general feeds and protects white supremacy? Yes, this horrendous tragedy and act of terrorism in Florida was relevant to this person's sickness. There's no denying mental health realities. And he also was nurtured by a culture of sickness, a culture of white supremacy. Every time you address safety dynamics and preventative or transformative measures to increase safety, an explicit anti-racist and decolonizing curriculum is desperately in need. And there are so many young people, and young people here in this room, who are hungry, teachers as well, hungry for this emancipatory learning, the type of learning that is directly linked to freedom. I witnessed this during Black History Day at Boynton a couple of weeks ago. It is tremendous what I discovered and what a group of girls discovered about themselves when they had an opportunity to learn where they fall on the historic timeline. It happens every time when you teach a child about who they are and teach them to fall in love with themselves. Keeping this information from them is violent. Avoiding a child's history or inaccurately teaching a child's history is educational abuse and neglect. So what are your resources and how are you tapping into them? You have equity mentors, and it seems like they should have some freedom to get creative and access new resources for teachers, families, and administrators. I get the impression that the equity mentors are not utilized in some schools, and that they're not necessarily respected or seen as valued resources. That needs to be dealt with explicitly. For the high school, I suggest you implement both race-based infinity groups as well as multiracial groups. Both segregated and integrated grouping is healthy and necessary. I propose a project with the title, The Truth About the N-Word. Teachers and all of these kids, they need tools. They need to be taught how normalized white supremacy is, even in the dynamics of how we decide we have the power on who's talking and who's not. I'm suggesting to the board and Dr. Brown that you get help with implementing this anti-racist and decolonizing project right away. Embed it in your curriculum. It's time to do something no other high school has ever done. Dealing with the language and the reality of threats to my son's life and his friends is extremely confronting. And an anti-racist and decolonizing curriculum is necessary for healing. And Lockie has one thing he wants to say. Two? Oh, excuse me.
We are not too young for anti-racist education. Don't be afraid to talk about race.
And that counts as 2 speakers, so.
That was 2
No, you're right, it was 2 speakers. We're good.
If you had any talent, you would have been the lead. Go back to shitty India and stop crying about whites in this white country. If you don't like it, go live in Africa, or even better, go back to your own shithole country, India. This was messaged to me personally on social media. My name is Prachi Uina, and I'm one of the student leaders of Students United Ithaca. Before this all began to get really intense, Dr. Neandon warned me that I would quickly become black or Mexican in the eyes of many people. People wouldn't know what I was, and because Indians are more unknown, people would go to the racism they were more familiar with. For the most part, people didn't even know I was Indian. They say, I'm an N-word who was mad because I didn't get a part. I want to start by addressing the idea that Students United Ithaca was not started because I didn't get a part. Because of how most children of color within the theater program are treated, I already knew from the beginning that I probably wouldn't get a lead. I tried out on the very slim chance I might get a lead, but I wasn't shocked when I didn't. I was shocked when they gave the part to a young white woman who clearly could never pass for a person of color. This was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. After years of watching students of color not get recruited for the shows and hearing of mistreatment from friends of color, along with my own experiences, I felt the letter, along with Ella's letter, which was signed by over 24 students, was necessary to at least let people know what was going on and that the students knew about it. From that letter, we were asked to speak at BJM at the MLK breakfast, and in that event, we decided to officially form SUI in order to create change. After BJM, we started getting a lot of local interviews, but after Breitbart picked up the story, we became the #1 trending story on Fox News nationally. Everything changed. Our families and our homes became the targets of very specific death threats and threats of physical violence and burning our homes to the ground. The school has told the 5 of us that we can come talk to them and that we are in a safe space, but besides one police car parked in front of the school, they were there for only one day. There are so many kids that don't understand what's going on. Some people have told me that they are scared to come to school because of us. The adults in the school need to address what's going on. If they don't, we will not only be targets of white supremacists, but the place we are supposed to feel most safe, our school, will feel less safe because the students don't know what's going on. And when people don't know what's going on, that almost always leads to misunderstanding. Misunderstanding almost always leads to problems. When we sat in a room with the almost completely white hunchback cast and 4 members of SUI, Mr. Brown told the students that everyone has been getting threats. The white children, except those in our group, must have been confused since they hadn't gotten a single threat, only sympathy. Is race such a taboo that you can't even talk about it when white supremacists are targeting children of color and their white allies? Can't we just name that as wrong? We need to stop running away from the fact that there are different races. We need to stop running away from the fact that America isn't a completely white country. I have never been so exhausted in my life. A big reason is that students and adults are asking me questions about this controversy and about race all the time. It's not my job to educate white people about race. It's the job of qualified educators to do the educating. Kids from all over the country are messaging us. Romanis are messaging us, thanking us for helping them not feel so invisible. By not talking about this, you're acting like we are all white and nothing is wrong. You are making us invisible. Please start talking about this issue in school. There are so many students who are confused and scared, and they're coming to us when they should be coming to you. Donald Trump called Haiti and Africa shithole countries. I was told to go back to my shithole country. Our leaders are miseducating Americans on race. I hope our school serves as a national example of fighting against this miseducation by doing real education and conversations on race in our schools. We can continue to be part of the problem, or we can be a national example of being part of the solution. I hope we will be the solution.
Is that it for the students that were?
No,
No, we
there's
have
a couple
one more
more.
student, and we have another mom who wants to speak. Okay. I thank you for letting the moms speak also on this. It's been really hard to hear all the threats to our children and to our homes and to our own personal safety, and I really thank you for letting us come here and speak to you. I want to start by sending my my condolences to the families in Florida. As a mother, I can't even imagine what that community is going through, and it's heartbreaking. My name's Eliza Fancourt, and I am Annabella Meade Fancourt's mother. I'm going to tell a bit of a personal story here, which I've never told in Ithaca. When I was 4, my mother had her first paranoid schizophrenic breakdown. She never fully recovered. For years, I believed that first break had sealed her fate. However, as an adult, I learned her life did not need to be a blur of crippling mental illness. Many paranoid schizophrenics, as soon as they have their first breakdown, receive better care than she did, comprehensive care, and they live relatively rewarding and mentally healthy lives. When my mother was ill, she engaged in crimes, albeit nonviolent, crimes she would have never dreamed of committing had she been healthy. If you were to ask me how these crimes would have been prevented, I would not focus on the individual measures specific to each crime. For example, due to her illness, my father had sole custody of me, and when I was 5, my mother took me out of state in a car. This was considered an illegal kidnapping at the time. If you were to ask me the most proactive step to preventing this, my answer would not be to limit her access to a car. My mother was hallucinating and taking me illegally, and for those reasons, she should not have driven a car. But she never would have been in that position of illegally taking me had she been healthy in the first place. The first step would be proactively treating her mental illness. Since my daughter and her friends started Students United Ithaca, we have received death threats, not just the children, but the parents, and threats to our homes. Many are racially charged. One specifically said he would drive to Ithaca and hang a 14-year-old child from a tree. What surprised me about this, particularly when I talk to young people, is how normalized this is. And hate targeted at specific groups leads to violence. But hate cannot hide, fester, thrive, and survive under loving, illuminating light of knowledge and education. When I Googled the words white supremacy and mass shootings, the number of cases of deaths linked to shooters with ties to white supremacy was staggering to me. An article in The Atlantic noted that, quote, "The well-worn path from hate speech to action, which leads certain individuals to resorting to lethal violence, is common." According to the article, over the last decade, 71% of all murders in America were carried out by white supremacists who traffic in hate speech. We can be proactive or we can be reactive in our approach to school safety. If my mother had been given quality health care, the conversation about her driving a car would never have had to happen. And I believe, given how much we have neglected the root causes of so much violence in our society, that we are now in the unfortunate position of needing both reactive and proactive measures. But the reactive measures, such as common sense gun control, are not the purview of the ICSD. What the ICSD is uniquely suited for is proactive steps. And that starts with teaching anti-racist education in our schools. There is a lot of pain in the world, and pain combined with misunderstanding leads to hate. And hate, targeted at specific groups, leads to violence. But hate cannot thrive and survive under the warm light of education. When the police asked me whether we thought our students were in danger from other students in the school, I had no idea, as there seems to be a gag order on talking about race-specific work that Students United of Ithaca are doing in the school. And the violence targeted toward our students is largely race-specific. There seems to be a gag order about talking about that from what my child and their friends are telling me. Our children are in danger. We must take every step to protect them now and in the future. It's 2008, and I'll close by saying that for the last 14 years, my mother has been a missing person. She was a beloved high school teacher of English, and she changed countless lives when she worked in Harlem before I was born. She loved young people. Her name was Mary Louise Marini. In her name, I ask you to start education on race in our schools, because everyone deserves to be safe. Thank you.
time's wasting.
He's coming right now. He's walking over here right now.
You don't start the clock.
All right, I'll jump right in. Hi, my name is Hallie Burch. I'm Ari Cummings' mother. I have to be honest and say I'm very disappointed in how the school has handled multiple situations, and I feel that they have lost opportunities to have a larger conversation and engage in anti-racism. I appreciate that the school heard the concerns of these students about the theater department and has moved forward with the new director and the play, and I thank you for that. But this is much bigger than the theater department, and it always has been. My concerns are these. These students, Eamon, Maddie, Ella, Prachi, and Ari, have had serious local and national threats against their lives, and the school has done very little. One of these students has been threatened to be hunted down and hung in a tree. This school has done nothing. Our children have been threatened by white supremacist racists, and the principal personally has not reached out to any of these students. There has been a police car at the school parked across the street for a few hours in the morning, but no efforts to increase security has been made, and if there has been, parents do not know. The gym and the main entrance have remained unlocked where anyone can walk right in. This is not just about these 5 students, these are about all the students. What do I think the school should do? Well, a good place to have started would to be at least have a conversation with the student body and teachers to explain what is going on and the misconception as there are misconceptions which are dangerous. I feel that this is a huge missed opportunity to discuss racism and what it means to be anti-racist. It also appears as if the school administrators have told teachers to not engage in the conversation as what is being reported by students. Let me make something clear. A lot of teachers and students are hungry for this conversation and don't know how to have it. It is up to the school administrators to educate themselves, the teachers, and their students and embody a culture of anti-racism in school and in the classroom. We are all learning, but if we don't have the conversation and create culture, we are not doing a good job. We first have to recognize the culture and curriculum is created by white supremacy. As discussed at the prior board meeting, policies are being rewritten. I hope this includes anti-racist curriculum and workshops to educate administrators, teachers, students, and our community at large. Of course, different cultures, different histories, different languages have to be incorporated into such a curriculum and culture. It's our common humanity and all its different expressions that counts the most. This is not a new concept. If you Google anti-racism in education schools, you will find an enormous amount of information. I would like to mention we have excellent community members who are trained to have these conversations. Please utilize them. After learning today about tonight's board meeting about gun control, I would like to say a few things. I'm very disappointed in how ICSD has a lack of school shooter training drills in the school. 17 people were killed and more than 15 injured in a mass shooting in Parkland, Florida last month. Let me remind you that most of these culprits of the worst mass shootings have been white males, most likely did not get anti-racism education. Ithaca is not in a bubble. We are doing our teachers and our children we are not doing them any good by not preparing them if something happens. I recently went through a shooter training at work, and I now feel like I know what to do. The training may save my life and others someday. This all ties in together. The change starts here. We cannot move on. It's on us.
Saskia?
Yeah, just coming.
I'm Saskia Van Nahuys, and I'm the mom of Prachi Rowena. And I'm going to read a letter from William Vila, who's the president of La Voz de Roms, which is the International Society of the Roma People. And so they wrote a letter to the school board and the students in response to what they learned about the play, about the musical. Dear school board members, parents, respected members of the community, and students of Ithaca, I would like to thank the students from Ithaca who succeeded in preventing the whitewashing of the role of Esmeralda by canceling their school play. Thank you for recognizing that the Romani people are also people of color, and for helping to bring attention to the fact that we are real people, which many Americans don't realize. Our place in European and American history has very often been whitewashed throughout the centuries to such an extent that people know nothing about our contribution to European culture and European languages, including English. For example, did you know that the word lollipop comes from the Romani lolli pahabia, meaning red apple, and referred to candied apples sold at carnivals before becoming a common English word. Romani people have almost no representation in modern culture, modern pop culture. We don't have a successful TV drama or sitcom in any country the way African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians have succeeded to do in the United States. I think of Whoopi Goldberg recounting how when she was a child flipping the channels on TV, to her surprise at seeing Lieutenant Uhura in Star Trek, and how she yelled to her mother across the house, "There's a black woman on TV and she ain't no maid." We're still waiting for this. Your recognition of how important this issue is, that you were willing to give up a school play to make the point, is exemplary. Pop culture does in fact have certain quite well-known figures who originally came from Romani backgrounds, even if it isn't commonly known. If you look at the original comic strips from where Robin of Batman and Robin came from, you will notice that he has a Romani background. Magneto from Marvel's X-Men and his two children, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, those are also characters with Romani backgrounds. But the new Hollywood film versions of these stories have lost touch with these origins. Voices like yours in Ithaca will help bring attention to this. Only when there is understanding of how violent whitewashing actually is promoting the destruction of fragile communities can we hope to stop this snowballing effect. In France, we aim to tell our own stories and history our own way. Part of this resistance was to appropriate Esmeralda. We performed a flash mob dance in Paris in front of the Notre Dame Cathedral to take back what is ours and to tell the new story. As you're probably aware, Victor Hugo's Esmeralda is an essentialized and racialized version of the Romani women. This stereotype started in the 19th century. During that time, it was a period of colonialism and a production of creating other. The damage that has been done by this perpetuation of such stereotypes has hardly begun to be examined by mainstream society. In its recognition of anti-gypsyism as a major factor in contributing to the situation in Roma today, Europe is awakening. Our Esmeralda, the one we appropriated, is a strong woman willing to fight for herself and for her community. Should you ever wish to explore this topic further with respect to Romani Americans and Romani culture in general, I would be happy to put you in touch with people who are located near you and qualified to put together a program with reference material for you.
I know we're on a time constraint, so I'll hurry up. My name is Maddie Carroll, and I am a student leader of Students United Ithaca. Hearing about the Parkland shooting broke my heart, and my love goes out to the families and the friends of the victims. These things keep happening, and every single time I feel like it hits me harder. Students United Ithaca has been getting violent and aggressive threats. Our lives have been threatened every single day just because we tried to create a more inclusive program. Please think about that. We tried to get more people of color involved in the program, and we received threats saying people would stop at any chance of any of us getting into college, destroy our future careers, multiple threats of burning down our houses, hate speech in form of racial, homophobic, and sexist slurs, and countless threats on our lives, our families' lives, including being lynched, burned alive, and shot. The reality is that race affects everyone. I wish my white friends had the opportunity through education to understand what's going on. Why aren't we educating them? We preach about a more inclusive program in our schools, like Eamon said. ICSD, practice what you preach. Every single time we attempt to have a conversation, it is extremely vague, and people are left confused and wondering what's going on in our district. We understand that it's scary to accept what's happening, but imagine what it feels like to be a person of color and not feel the support of your district. It seems that our teachers have been told not to talk about this. Some of them whisper their support to us, but when no one else is watching. You call us your children, yet when your children ask you for help, you turn a blind eye. We asked for more protection because we're afraid. We asked for an open and educated conversation about race because we were afraid. When you don't discuss race, it makes people of color feel like somehow their blackness or their brownness is wrong, and it makes white students come to people of color with questions we shouldn't have to answer. It is not the job of people of color to constantly educate white people. It is incredibly exhausting. I'm 17. I should be thinking about what I'm going to wear to prom, what I'm going to do next weekend. Am I going to go to college? I don't know. But instead I have to constantly answer these questions. Our lives have been threatened in writing multiple times, viciously. Some of us have been approached on the street. In our own hometown, we're supposed to feel safe. What more does it take to take us seriously? We need to be safe physically and emotionally. I hope you'll make immediate changes to keep us safe. Your children are begging you. Please start listening. Thank you.
We have gone beyond our 30 minutes that we have in policy. We've gone about 50 minutes. There are still a list of names, and so the board does now have to decide how best to proceed. 12.
I make a motion to continue allowing the community to speak for an additional half an hour.
All our motions aren't applauded all the time, so there you go. I need a second. I saw Ann. Any discussion, comments? Move seconded. All in favor? That is.
Oh, sorry.
Staring at Moira. That is everyone. All right. We'll continue, and at 8:35, we're going to move on to the rest of our business, which we do have to get to.
I cannot pronounce his name, and I apologize. Aranya.
Mena.
Thank you very much.
And
My
equity
apologies.
mentors. We're all ones. Hopefully one's that. That's the first one.
Are you all going to speak, or?
We're all going to take we.
No, I'm just asking.
Yes, we're all going to take turns.
Okay.
We'll come down because you're starting really to like headless and then we'll move out.
When you're ready.
Dear board and members of the ICSD community, we come tonight representing the district equity mentors, a group of staff from every school in the district who work together to address issues of equity in our individual schools and in the district. We're grateful to the students of Student United Ithaca for bravely bringing to light the continuing issues of racial inequality within the Ithaca City schools. We're proud of the young people of color and their white allies who are standing up for all of our students and being agents of change in their world. Equity mentors recognize our responsibility to teach and encourage everyone to question systemic racism and oppression and stand up for what's right. We have taught you, brave children, about standing up, but failed to prepare you for the enormous price you would pay. First, you were not respected or heard by the adults you trust, and now your lives are being threatened by strangers. Still, there is no plan to make the huge changes that need to be made, and you have been let down.
In the case of the casting policies for our musicals and plays in the district, this has been a situation that has been addressed in the past by students, teachers, and parents. It is not a new problem. We often see inequities in all areas of extracurricular activities that make access to certain activities difficult or impossible for students of color. There are no physical signs that say Latinos or African Americans or others are not welcome here. Nor is there small print that says if you have limited income or transportation, don't bother filling out this permission slip. But there are pervasive underlying assumptions that are being made that make it very difficult for all students to participate. Why is this?
We need to answer that question. No more waiting for threats. No more committing to change. We need to do it now. We've been here before. We still struggle with the same issues we've been speaking out against for almost 2 decades. In our buildings, some adults have blamed the kids and their parents for this problem. This has to stop. The problem is racism, and we need to face it. We need to talk about it. We need to encourage difficult conversations from pre-K to 12th grade. We fail every student in this district when we don't. These kids are brave, and this as brave as our civil rights leaders of the past. Now the big question is, are we going to be brave too?
You don't need to use the mic.
I don't.
Just go ahead and speak.
All right.
Speak normally.
We recommend that the Board of Education and all the administrators of the ICSD make it very clear and transparent that they denounce hate and hate speech. Students and adults need to be made aware that all racist microaggressions made by adults and students will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We need to immediately stop blaming these kids and protect them. We need to have difficult conversations. When kids tell us they are not included, we need to believe them and stop supporting attitudes of white superiority that are running unchecked in our community today.
And finally, and I'll say that I say this looking at my current students who remind me of humility and just bravery, so I love you guys. Students need to know that we support them, and teachers and all ICSD employees throughout the buildings need to build anti-racist curriculum and support the establishment of honest, anti-racist work done in all grades with help from experts in our community and beyond. That's it for us. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Mariano. I've lived in Ithaca for close to 50 years. I've been a social justice activist as well as a small business owner, the mother of a very grown son. I came here feeling furious, absolutely furious at what has been happening, and what angered me as somebody who has been both out in the streets and working behind the scenes is that a young generation rising up and speaking for themselves about the way they have been not listened to, not comforted, not supported, is the kind of thing that should give us all incredible joy. That there is a younger generation that has the personal wherewithal and the support of their families and part of the community to be able to do that. As somebody who's been a community leader for much of those 50 years, it just gives me enormous, enormous hope that this is the case, and fury that the people that I and other people helped put in office, and in some instance tried to keep from being in office, do not rise up and say, yay, you guys are marvelous, you really understand civics, now where do we go from here? Okay, listening as I did, I thought, I don't think I'm going to be able to speak without crying, which is really not what I do in public. Because it is so incredible to me that this is all being handled as a rational discussion at 3 minutes apiece. Okay, I don't mind speaking for only 3 minutes. I am not getting those kinds of death threats. There was a time that I did, when I organized for LGBT rights. Okay, but that ended because laws were passed and attitudes changed, and it was frightening when it happened, but we didn't have social media, so there was a distance. There was a distance. People had to write letters and find out phone numbers. I don't understand why you are not singing the praises of these young people. I just don't understand, and I don't know any of them. One of them I have met through his mother, but the rest, I have no idea who they are, who their parents are, whether they're good people or not good people, they are really smart. They are really smart, they are really together, and it has given me a sense of hope, given the kind of administration that we have and the kind of world that that administration is narrowly imposing upon all of us, of color first, but white people, we too will have our chance to be contained by the neo-fascists in office. Okay? So I don't understand how you, superintendent, members of the board, how you don't take the power that you now have. You're not outsiders. You have the power to do things. That's why people get elected. That's why they get prestigious salaries and are educational innovators and have digital great knowledge for how we educate in the future. You have power to do a lot of things, and you are trying to keep it all quiet. Keep it all quiet. Let's not have anything explode. Don't talk about it to the media. I didn't know that teachers were being encouraged or told not to talk to their students. I was not aware of that. I don't have a child in the school. I read as many emails as I get sent by as many different people, and that's how I find out a lot of information. Okay, I don't understand why you are so reluctant to channel conflict, and it is conflict. It's not just a difference of opinion, it's conflict, into viable change rather than hustling to make it go away quietly, which it never will.
Kirby Edmonds, and then Ruth Yarrow after Kirby.
$6,000 critical thinkers plus. It is not possible to produce that without teaching people how to have critical conversations about race. It's simply not possible. Equity. Providing an education that ensures that race, class, gender, and ability no longer are reliable predictors of academic success. If the district is serious about using culturally responsive teaching as a strategy for actually reaching that goal, all of the books that you've been giving to people indicate that in order to produce culturally responsive teaching, requires an understanding of educators of the racialized society we live in, and a competent facility in both having and leading conversations about race, racism, and not so much those things themselves, but the implications for the identity development of our young people in so many different ways. And so, I think the thing I want to say is we've been in this conversation now for 30 years. I'm not confused about the resistance or how much there is. And I asked myself decade after decade of supporting the district and having these conversations and supporting staff and having these conversations, what's really in the way? And what I've said to myself is, well, this is probably not going to change until the students demand it. And here we are. So I'm very happy. But I'm also happy because in this community there are the resources both to create, develop, and teach from an anti-racist pedagogical perspective. There are definitely the resources to support people having conversations about race and racism, and to teach educators how to have those conversations with young people. So I would just say, here's an opportunity, and I would urge everyone who has a chance to support the educators who are already willing to talk about race, to support the educators who already teach from a culturally responsive perspective, and please do not suppress their voices. To respond affirmatively to students' demands and requests for well-facilitated conversations about race and racism, and to provide opportunities for staff to learn not only how to have respectful, deep conversations about race and racism, but also how to initiate and lead. And as a community member, I'll just tell you, you have my complete support and willingness to help you get there. I look forward to the day when there is no place in the Ithaca City School District for an educator who says, I refuse to talk about race, and I'm too afraid to help my students do it. I know we're not there yet, but I look forward to getting there. I'm completely willing to help you get there.
Ruth Yarrow's up next, and then Susan Mutler. Hope I pronounced that correctly.
I'm Ruth Yarrow. I'm here as part of the coordinating team of Showing Up for Racial Justice, a group trying hard to help white people begin to understand what people of color in this country deal with. I would like to say that this has been going on for a long time. When my kids were in then Central School, there was a racial incident, and an African-American mom, Marcia Fort, and I started the Multicultural Resource Center. It is still going on, and so much needs to be done. So I would say we're with you. If you can take leadership on this and make a national beginning of fighting the structural racism in this country, I would be so proud, almost as proud as I am of these students. Thank you very much.
Susan Moulter from Ithaca. In 1968, I was living in Hong Kong, and it was a time of political turmoil, and the bus drivers were predicted to go on strike. And I caught a bus downtown, as I always did, and went to the end of the line and got off and waited for another bus to take me to where I lived. And a bus came, and it was very full. You could see the people standing like sardines, and I'd been in buses like that. That was not unusual. 10 minutes later, a second bus came, did not stop either, but slowed down and went a few hundred feet until it had to stop because somebody on the bus wanted to get off. So I said, okay, when the next bus comes and passes me and doesn't stop but slows down because somebody needs to get off, I'm going to run and catch that bus. And I did, because it slowed down. And as the lady was getting off, I squeezed through and got on the bus. And I remember saying in Cantonese, I've been standing here 30 minutes, 3 buses have come, none of them have stopped. It's because I'm a foreigner, isn't it? And I share this little story from 50 years ago for the white people in the room tonight, like me. You people of color, or Muslims, or Jews, or LGBTQ community know that you are experiencing things like this all the time, still in America today. And this is terrible and this is wrong. But white people will go through their lives never having experienced the little thing I did for 30 minutes of being furious and being helpless, and we need to. But we can't duplicate that experience, and I'm here tonight for just these couple of minutes to say to us Caucasians, we have got to wake up and speak up and join you students and teachers and other adults in the community who see things that need changing in the Ithaca school system, in the town of Ithaca, the city of Ithaca, and in the world. And we are here to help you in any way we can, just as I think all of us are ready to help the people of Florida when they go national trying to get gun control in place. There's a march on the 24th of March, and the deadline for a national teacher walkout is May 1st, and the students' plans in Florida are, if they can't get legislation introduced in both houses of Congress, good legislation, for banning semi-automatic guns and universal background checks, by May 1st, there may be a national teachers walkout. We're all in this together, folks. It's our country, it's our lives, and together we can do it.
Stifle, is that correct? Stiefel, and then Kim Knight is next.
Thank you, Grace Stiefel. I'm a resident of the town of Ithaca. I'm a taxpayer. I'm here to appreciate the school board for allowing this discussion and to remind you of your responsibilities. Job one for you folks is to keep the students safe. You can't have a viable educational system without safety in schools, and racism is very unsafe. Guns in schools, very unsafe. So it would be my wish that we could eliminate both any form of oppression and any sort of tools of violence in the schools. And for the young people, I'm so proud of you guys. I know it's risky, and you've been feeling the threats. Fortunately, in our culture, threats are very real, but the possibility of things being carried out, it's possible, but it's not really that likely. And I want all of you to feel safe enough in school that you can open your hearts and your minds to this wonderful period of your life, even though it feels pretty crummy at times and unsafe. But life changes, you'll change, society changes, and you're changing the society by coming here, by being here, and making your feelings known to the community. I'm here to support you as well. I know it's easy to feel alone with the situation. You've got your friends, which are very important, but ultimately you go to bed at night thinking, what's going to happen tomorrow. So I just want all of you to go home tonight and rest easy and know that we got your backs, as much as we can. But it is up to the school board. Again, it's job one, to keep our students safe. There's risk and reward in every aspect of life. Your risk is to perhaps not be voted back in the school board. Well, all right, if your beliefs are stronger than your need to be on the school board, so be it. I would really like you to consider what's more important, for you to speak out and make the changes that are necessary, or to be elected back in office to maintain the status quo. We need changes, we need risk takers. These students are taking risks every day in school and taking risks by coming here tonight. So the rewards are what? The rewards are a better culture, a better society, and that's what we're all here to create. So hang in there, and we're with you. Thank you.
Kim Knight and Raphael's next.
Hi, I'm Kim Knight. Can you guys hear me? So I'm here as a teacher, not in this district, although I was a teacher in this district now, in the county though. We were talking about kids need to talk about race and whether kids are too young. I hear this a lot. I teach first grade, like, oh, they're too little, they're too young. So I just want to read you. This is actually something that I printed out that I was planning to share with my colleagues and my principal, actually. I just printed it yesterday, so this is perfect timing. I didn't know until 2 hours before this meeting that it was happening, so didn't get a chance to write out good remarks. But, so at birth, babies look equally at faces of all races. At 3 months, babies prefer to look at faces of their own race. Children as young as 2 years use race to reason about people's behaviors. By 30 months, most children use race to choose playmates. Expressions of racial prejudice often peak at ages 4 and 5. Those are kids I haven't even gotten in my classroom yet. I teach 6-year-olds. By 5, Black and Hispanic children in research settings, Black and Hispanic children in research settings show no preference towards their own groups compared to whites. White children at this age remain strongly biased in favor of whiteness. By kindergarten, children show many of the same racial attitudes that adults in our culture hold. By kindergarten. Again, I haven't even gotten these kids yet. And they have already learned to associate some groups with higher status than others. Explicit conversation with 5 to 7-year-olds about interracial friendship can dramatically improve their racial attitudes in little as a single week. That's just a very small amount, and I don't have anything else to say, but there's more to that. But we got to talk about it when they're little, and I need that help as a teacher. I'm trying to find stuff to help me have those conversations with my kids. And I know it's out there, but there's so much out there for teachers to do, and I need help doing that. I was a clueless white teacher a year and a half or so ago, and I'm a little less clueless, but I recognize that I'm still pretty clueless. But then I realized how much more clueless other white teachers are. And if I'm the one that knows more, we got a problem, people. So anyway, we got to talk about it.
Raphael, and then Megan Barber is next.
Folks, I have a brief statement prepared, so I'll just read that, and then there are a couple other words since that have evolved. So greetings, esteemed members of the board. My name is Raphael Aponte, for those that don't know me. I'm a farmer. I'm an owner and operator of Rocky Acres Community Farm. I'm also the director of the Youth Farm Project here in Ithaca. And I'm also a member of the Working Group for Black Lives Matter Ithaca. Yes, you are. I have worked with and in the service of youth for over 16 years, first in my hometown of New York City, and now in my newly adopted community of Ithaca, New York. When I attended last month's board meeting, I was filled with gratitude of being in the company of courageous youth, community members, parents that were willing to speak their truth, and educators and caregivers that supported the youth rallying against a clear example of systemic racism within their school. What began as an issue of colorblind casting for the school's upcoming musical, which has since been casually referred to as the drama, has grown beyond the theatrical and actually revealed some much larger issues at hand. What started off as a local issue that could have had some concrete local solutions within our school district quickly grew to gain national attention. While lots of support and encouragement was here locally and poured in online from various communities that we saw examples of today, so did critiques and threats. So before me, I have several examples of just some of the kind of threats that have been hurled against our students for speaking out. And a lot of those have already been said, so I won't even rehash that, because the last thing I want to do is uphold words of hate against our students. But I do want to show you what this looks like. And names have been redacted, but this is a constant stream that our students and parents are still receiving right now. And these are death threats. So this young man or adult, we don't even know who this person is, whose profile picture is a Confederate flag, has said, I will again, this is another threat that he's making, I will personally kill this nigger. Here's something else that was received at 11:22 p.m. Right? So having our students receive these kind of messages, after I'm done with you, you'll be swinging from a tree. These are not messages that our students need to be receiving. In light of the events that did take place in Florida, we need to do more to take care and to protect our students' safety. That starts with being proactive about the curriculum that we're teaching. Race is a social fabric that is over us all. We do no service to our students by not teaching them about gravity, right? It's a thing. It's here. We're all stuck to the floor, and we all experience and walk through racism. So we need to understand that. and do better. And something else that I would like to say, and I have these I want to I'll submit for comment. But as a member, me personally, this community, these students, these teachers, these caregivers have my personal support behind, and love and admiration for being so courageous to say what you have said. Also, I'm using the organizations that I'm part of to leverage the power that I do have in order to further this conversation. The Youth Farm Project we do agricultural education, and we have found that some of the biggest barriers to that have not been having conversations around race, have not been having conversations around gender equity, class, or all these other social constructs. So we have been implementing for the past couple of years an anti-racist curriculum, not merely a non-racist one, where racism isn't present. We can't pretend that that's the thing. We are actively anti-racist. And again, we have these students, parents, caregivers, educators have the full support of Black Lives Matter Ithaca. We support you, we support the families, and we support all the work. We see you, and we love you. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Megan Barber. I'm a graduate of Enfield School and ACS and Ithaca High School, and now the parent of a Caroline kindergartner. And I wanted to share with you 2 short stories about my experience as a kid in Ithaca. The first story was on the bus, riding home from Enfield School. We were all white kids on the bus with a white male bus driver. And one day, instead of taking us home, he pulled the bus over to the side of the road and he stopped the bus, which was weird. And he unbuckled, and he got up and he turned around and he told a racist joke. And it was creepy, it was gross, it was weird. I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything to him. I didn't say anything to a friend or my parents or a teacher, because I'd already learned white silence at that young age. And if you fast forward to middle school, my next story, my best friend was black, a young black woman, and we were really big math nerds. We loved math, and we went really far. We got really far in math together, and at the end of 8th grade, we both took the course 2 math regents, so we were like a couple years ahead, and we thought we were really smart. And we transferred to the high school the next year, and we got our schedules and what classes we were in, and I marched off to course 3 honors math, and I was so excited, and I couldn't wait to sit next to her. And she wasn't in my class. And I kept waiting for her to show up, and she didn't show up. She was put in another class. And to me, that was racism. And again, I didn't say anything. I didn't ask anybody. I just kind of accepted it. And, that's what keeps racism going, is white people being silent. And I wish that I'd had anti-racism training in school, because it would have confirmed that the racism I was seeing was wrong, and it would have helped me see the possibility of doing something about it. So I urge you to follow the lead of these young people and have race education in the schools. Thank you.
We have one more name on our list, and I can't read the name, but the initials are AO. And does someone know who signed up? It looks like I can't read the handwriting.
If you don't know who you are, then we'll...
Did anyone sign up?
Elise, something, yeah, who lives on North Cayuga.
I would think if that person signed up and they were here, they would know who they are. We have 1 more minute for 1 more person. If anybody wants to speak. If nobody wants to speak, we're going to go ahead and move on.
Oh, I'm sitting there?
You can do it right from there if you
no,
want.
you can stay right there. And you're the last. You're the last person.
On the list?
It could be me.
Never mind.
Oh.
Alec Kosinski?
That sounds.
What's that?
No, it's okay.
No. We can go.
We can go together.
Well, you're close to having neither one of you, so I suggest somebody speak to us.
Hey, yo,
please.
don't talk like that. That was disrespectful.
That was very disrespectful.
Don't talk
Please
like
stop.
that. That was disrespectful. Don't say that.
I suggest we just let the young lady talk.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree.
Better language. That's better language.
I also agree that that was disrespectful. Just ask the lady. Hi, my name is Mena, and I did not go to this school. However, I was here at the meeting before, the one, and I was here as just a supporter. I did not claim to be part of Students at the United Ithaca. But after I publicly showed my support on social media and other outlets, I also received many threats, death threats. One man, he was in his, like, I think early 40s. He said to me, I'm gonna come up there and I'm gonna slit your eyes because since you're Asian, you can't see anyways. And these things are like, don't really get to me anymore because it's kind of like going over and over again in your head, like, it doesn't matter, like, this dude's like completely crazy, I don't know what you're talking about. Your like backdrop picture or your profile picture is like a weird, okay, that's not important. But when I was going through the school system, when we got to, in history class, when we got to the topics of slavery in America and the civil rights movement, it was just, okay, there were slaves, and then it got better, racism, and then that was it, and I never heard about it again. And when talking about all races, like, it's not just, like, I'm here too, I'm Asian, I didn't just pop out of nowhere, like, where's my history, like, and it's really hard just knowing, like, yeah, maybe we talk about a little bit to the extent, not to any extent of which, like, should be talked about, but some people's past we just don't talk about at all, and I think, like, that's just really messed up. So I was here at first to support, but now I'm kind of pissed. Just a little bit. That's all I have to say.
Thanks everyone for speaking. We're at the end of the time, and I think we were at the end of the list. Did we not?
No, there's one he wanted to speak and then he did. Yeah.
You spoke at our last meeting, correct? I know, but that's, go ahead.
So did all of us.
Yep. I know, but, come on. And I much prefer to hear from the students than old folks, but we're glad to hear from you. But this is the last one.
So, I mean,
No, it's okay. I mean, just let me talk. It's fine. My name is Alec Kosinski.
I think we quiet. We prefer to listen, and I think if we had some quiet, we could finish up. And my role, and I'm the president of the board, and I have to run the meeting, and that's what I have to do. And so that's my role.
Way to use that white privilege.
So,
well, I'd say it's an elected position by the Board of Education. So
You're elected by the community, and you're accountable to this community.
Could we just let him talk, please?
To the members of this community.
this is public comment period. This is not the venue for a long discussion, and we're happy to have our last speaker.
Thank you. My name is Alec Kosinski. I'm a IHS class of 1991 grad. I'm here tonight really to talk about how when I was a kid I really hated Black History Month. And I need to qualify things a little bit here. I went to Buffalo City Schools through the 3rd grade, and then I moved to Ithaca for 4th grade. And to be fair, Black History Month was relatively new then, just a couple years. I'm that old. And so the curriculum may have still been in development. But my experience of Black History Month was this. In kindergarten, we had 1 week out of the month. We talked about Harriet Tubman, the Buffalo connection to the Underground Railroad, Martin Luther King, and George Washington Carver. On Friday of that week, we had a special lunch that included greens and peanut soup, and I really hated the peanut soup. Grade 1, it was 1 week again. We talked about Harriet Tubman, the Buffalo connection to the Underground Railroad, Martin Luther King, and the George Washington Carver. And on Friday, we had that special lunch, and it again included greens and peanut soup. Second grade, 1 week, we talked about Harriet Tubman, the Buffalo connection to the Underground Railroad, Martin Luther King. I'm hoping you get the pattern here. And third grade, that was when I started really hating Black History Month. Because as I was sitting there, I was just a kid, and I thought, they don't have anything else that they could talk about. And that was the limits of the gifts to the American experience were these 4 topics. So, I didn't even know why Black History Month was chosen to be the shortest month of the year until a couple weeks ago. And I found out that it had to do with the proximity of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass's birthday. And so it was originally a week and they made it 4. Now that would have been something that I would have held on to as a kid, but obviously I was never taught that. In the 4th grade, I moved to Ithaca, and I don't remember anything about Black History Month in the Ithaca City School District, and I guess that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight. I thought I was progressive. I thought that Ithaca City School District gave me a good education, but I found out that I was woefully prepared to deal with issues of race. My education started when I was in the Army, and I had a very close friend. I didn't realize how close at the time, but I met his family, and his kids were calling me Sir and Mr. Osinski, which just didn't sit well with me because I like kids and I like doing things. And I said, no, call me Alec, and he stopped me later and said, no, they have to call you Sir. They have to call you Mr. Osinski because you're okay, but I don't know when they're going to run into somebody who isn't, and I need them to be prepared. That was my experience. That was the first thing that started making me think that maybe there's something different here, and I didn't learn that here. So that was, as an organization, your fault. From what I'm understanding and what I hear about, things aren't much different now. We're not having these discussions, and so I think that we need to. I think it's really important. I think one of the other things that I wanted to mention really quickly, because I'm realizing that I'm running short of time here, as I'm talking about these things and thinking about them, I'm thinking about the AP courses that I was in when I was in Ithaca High School. You use initials here. AF was the daughter of the vice president of student affairs at Cornell University. Her father was Black. LS was the daughter of a mixed racial couple who both taught at Cornell. DP was Black. Both of his parents were prominent researchers at Cornell. SK was Korean. Her father was a prominent doctor in town, and that's all I could remember. Those were the folks who were in my AP classes. So my question is now, where were the kids of color? Why didn't my courses match the distribution of the rest of the school? And the other question that I have for you now is, do they match now? Because if they don't, at the very least, match the look of the school, then we're doing something really wrong. And we need to figure out what that is and make it better. Because it should at least match. Racial issues need to be part of the curriculum from kindergarten. I was ready for it then. I grew up in the time of Black is Beautiful. And that was a really powerful message for me, a kid, poor white kid, to a single mom. But my education sort of stopped there. And I can't help but to think how much better my life would be and how much better other lives would be if we would have had those discussions and I would have learned about that stuff then. I can't wonder how much better my life and others' lives would be if my classes looked like the rest of the population. So you failed me in that regard, and I'm just asking you to do a little bit better. Thank you.
That's it for those who have signed up to speak, and actually I'd like to hear from the student reps, and be more than happy to hear your responses, anything that's going on at LACS, and obviously you can respond to what you've heard here tonight, because the board will have that opportunity in a few minutes. And we'll start with LACS, then go to Guy.
Hi, there's so many new people here. We're the LACS reps. I'm Lila Zussman. This is Naomi Sibley. I see a lot of familiar faces here, actually, so it's really exciting. It's really cool what's been going on. Like, these conversations are so good to have, and I know at LACS, this is something that we've been kind of processing and digesting and thinking about how we can go forward with this as well. So it'd be great to kind of work together as a district, especially with IHS and LACS, but in all the schools together, to see what kind of education can come out of this. Yeah, really briefly, what's been happening at LACS, unrelated, because this is kind of an abrupt transition, is we've been having a lot of conversations about mental health in terms of students' mental health that have manifested in the forms of focused groups. We've been having those weekly or every other week in an attempt to kind of talk about how we can improve the general mental health of ourselves as students and what we can do to go forward with that at LACS, because that has been something that's prominent lately.
Yeah, there's going to be a musical, The Addams Family, this weekend. I guess I kind of want to say I feel a little weird sitting on the board right now. As a student representative, I feel that my job here is to take the feelings of my school and tell it to the board here when we're just in like a regular meeting. But I guess, especially at ACS, a lot of kids don't really know, and I feel like we should probably tell more students that they have a chance for their opinions to be conveyed through us to the board. Also, I didn't really intend to wear all black today, but now I'm really glad I did. So yeah, thank you.
And just one more thing from LACS, completely unrelated. Sorry, this is such a weird, abrupt transition for this. Our mock trial team had a sleepover, which is our annual, like, big bonding thing we do, and it went really well, and we're really excited to keep doing mock trial. And I did wear black intentionally. I'm in full support of you guys, so yeah.
Ithaca High.
Thank you for the opportunity. Also for us, it's also a bit of a weird transition here because I'm going to talk about boys swimming, which isn't really related to this. But the boys team did very well 2 weekends ago, and we are once again, I'm on the team. I'm kind of bragging for the team right now. We are sectional champs once again. So for the seniors, this will be our third victory in 4 years that we've been swimming on the team. And we beat out our rival Horseheads, which we're really, really pleased about. And moving forward, this weekend is actually the New York State swimming competition, and we have 6 swimmers who will be competing in individual events and relays at the competition. And then also, a little unrelated to the past discussion is some stuff about NHS. So if you guys don't know, NHS stands for National Honor Society, and right now it's around 40 different seniors, 40 seniors who meet together around once or twice a month. And the primary focus of NHS is to increase sort of volunteering at our school. So a lot of seniors, actually the seniors are required at least 30 hours during the school year to go out into the community and find some sort of public agency and volunteer. And just today we finished our chocolate fundraiser to raise money for this program called Pages Through the Ages. And this program is, the money made from the fundraiser will be going to local elementary school students to help them buy books of their choice. And so far, each student has raised around $35, which is pretty nice. And Mirabai will talk about Code Red.
So recently, actually last week, Code Red just finished up their build week, and well, I'm not an expert on Code Red or robotics. I guess it's the period in which they make the finishing touches to their robots and basically build them. So these students worked nearly every single day after school for 4 hours, as well as countless hours on the weekends to build their robots. And this year, I guess their challenge for their robots is to be able to have them pick up cubes and manipulate their position, as well as have the robots climb a short ladder. And they will have their first competition this weekend in Utica, and then they will have another competition in a few weeks in Rochester.
Hi everyone, I'm Asha, and so for our school's Bowling Run Club, we'll be participating in the UNAR conference on March 9th and 10th in Rochester. And mock trial is also preparing for the NISBA county competition that will be in April against us.
Hi, I'm Mariano, and Math Club will participate in the NISMO, NYSML, which stands for New York State Math League, at March 17th. Which is actually my birthday. New York High Schools. And in New Visions, we tried to recruit new members in IHS on the 16th. And also there will be an open house for life science on March 6th and 7th for engineering at Fordham campus. And on the 8th, there will be one for health and medical science at Cayugan Medical Center.
Is that it?
Yeah, and also I would like to just say that I fully I'm showing my support for all you guys, and I think it's really cool. Thank you.
Anything else you guys said? All right. Thank you. Board responses at this point, to those who wish to respond.
Started. Chris, you want to go first? I started first last time.
Well, this is not an easy conversation. I believe it's a conversation that needs to be had. I believe it will be ongoing. Really dissecting it and breaking it down, we know this is not new, and this is nothing new under the sun. How we go about it together is really going to be the crux of how effective we are. I've got a lot of different emotions regarding this. I'm incredibly proud of the students and proud of our district and our city, because for people to come together and support each other like this and recognizing our opportunities, I appreciate that. I hope that they we can really recognize our opportunity together. Thanks everybody for coming out.
Thanks, Chris.
I'll go.
Moira?
Yeah, so many times I've been on the board for 2.5 years now, and many times I have found myself overwhelmed because there's so much to do and so much to care about. And that's particularly been the case, I'd say, for the last month or so. And 2 weeks ago, my focus was shifting from, concerns that were brought at the last meeting when you all spoke to then it's, well, what about school safety in terms of guns and mental health? And so overwhelming emotions, and I also recognize that emotions can be a catalyst for change, but it also can be paralyzing. And so what I've been struggling with, and even as I sit in this meeting or I'm home and I'm reading and I'm talking to my colleagues, talking to other people, is trying to harness that emotion rather than letting it paralyze me. So that it can be a catalyst for action and for change. And what I've always felt in the last couple of years on the board and when I was a teacher is, how to focus my energies and my actions. And that's a real struggle. And I want to say I really appreciate everybody speaking. I mean, sometimes it's difficult for me to hear, but I also, it is helping me to grow and to think about action steps. And I really do want help from everybody about being really specific about what kind of actions seem to be workable. I am the chair of the curriculum committee, the board curriculum committee, which I've found very, very frustrating because curriculum is gigantic subject. So trying to figure out when we're talking about, pre-K through 12th grade in multiple subjects, how do we focus our energies? But I heard the word curriculum used a lot tonight. And so what people have said about that has definitely given me a greater sense of how to focus the work of that committee on something that clearly is vital. But again, I would really love to hear from people about specific action steps, because we can talk about anti-racist curriculum, but what does that really mean? So thank you for taking me on this emotional roller coaster, but making me feel like I have some clue about how to focus my action moving forward.
Thanks, Maura. Ann, go ahead.
Just want to say thank you for all coming, and I really do appreciate the fact that you're bringing this kind of fresh energy to problems that have maybe been, very difficult to solve. So for me, for looking at this moment, I'd rather see that you guys are part of a really important moment, a really critical moment, and part of that momentum that really seems to be crystallizing. And for that, I feel very appreciative. The other thing I would like to say is I think towards making a real change, which I think is incredibly important, is about building relationships. It's about trust and building bridges. It's about analyzing the issues, taking a couple steps back, looking at it from multiple angles, things maybe you haven't thought about before. And I think it's just really important to embrace that as a process. And so I think it's a moment to, as I say, to take the energy that you bring to this moment and then go with it in a constructive way. So that's.
Others, if you wish. Is that E?
As Chris said, the emotions I'm feeling almost can't be put in words. But I will start by saying you had any two of those children's lives together, and I've been busting my ass in this community to make a way for children who look like them at least that long. I understand what Ann just said about stepping back and being analytical. I'm going to go in a different direction. And I wish the babies were here who had been there earlier. So whoever bought them, thank you. That was invigorating for my heart. Let's be clear. Let's talk specifically and exactly about the moment in the time limit. The brilliance of these young people making a connection between racism and what happened in Parkland is profound. Eamon read a quote. Let me start with a quote. Delivered New York City, Riverside Church, April 4th, 1967, by a middle-aged man some of you might be familiar with, named Martin Luther King. When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. I'd like to think if he were still around, he would have been very precise in adding sexism and classism to this list. Your entire lives, this country has been at war. You have not woken up a moment of your young lives where we have not been around the world expressing our continued interest in supporting empire. So that comes home to these shores. with guns in the hands of individuals we would like not to have guns. We're old enough to have seen this before. And this is the thing that makes you want to cry. In New York City, after Vietnam, people came home back to the streets with actual machine guns. A machine gun can fire 960 rounds a minute. The AR-15s that have been used in this spate of destructive incidents are semi-automatic weapons. They have to be configured, they have to be rigged in order to create this kind of mass death we're seeing. When I grew up, they didn't have to be rigged. Someone just had to pull the trigger. If I made a mistake in dealing with you all specifically, let me apologize again. Some of us have been raised in situations where we know what the threat of death looks like up close and personal, not through the interceding mechanism of a computer screen. The fights we fought have been apartheid in South Africa. The fights I fought personally have been police violence in New York City and the death of young people. On my 8th birthday in 1973, my father almost killed me out of frustration and fear that I would go down the same path of a 10-year-old child who was shot on my 8th birthday named Clifford Glover in Brooklyn, in the back. And my mother had to come in and rescue me. She didn't know what the fuck he was doing. That's how I became aware of the conversation about my little black life being meaningless. So we have MLK giving us a 50-year head start in the conversation you guys are bringing to us tonight. Let's be a little more specific about guns. Why do we have the Second Amendment? What is the culture of guns about? Why is it so ingrained in our society? Of course it was to protect us from the British. Of course it was to protect us from ourselves, because we were fearful. Of course it was to protect us from the state, right? Nobody knew if this experiment would work. Tell me if somebody has said to you specifically in your classrooms that it was also because we have a colonial settler mentality in this country, and the arms were given to specific groups of people who were unwanted so they could protect us from the Indians to the west and the slaves from the south. We have a lot of work to do in this community, not just in the Ithaca City School District. We have a lot of work in this community. Let's not all sit here as adults and pretend that the institutions that you all work for and work at and serve at are any fucking better than this one. Right? I've bled myself for a decade to bring this community to a point where we can have this conversation. That's why it's so painful. It's because we can finally actually have it, and people don't break apart, and people don't run with their hair on fire screaming. Roberta Waller and I introduced the concept of a talking circle to the high school for the first time a year and a half ago, after 15 years of Kirby and Laura introducing that into this community. I don't know what happened to the energy, but there's precedent. We've done it. I will tell you, in addition to the conversation about opening your hearts and minds, what I've seen in my decade even more effective is having content-specific professionals come here and show people like the person in question tonight how we can continue to move us forward in the arts using modern-day practices and techniques. It's about helping math professionals understand the value of algebra in 7th grade, right? It's about us deciding to give the Regents in social studies in 8th grade, middle school. I could list 1,000 things for you about public education that I wish you all would come here and support these children like this for, right? But because those things are complex, the room is empty. As much as some of the comments about your children terrified me, I will tell you that if someone touched a hair on their heads, you all would get to know me in a different way, and you would not enjoy it. It is our job to protect them. Not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. And whoever said that, I have to give you credit because you are right. In my 10 years, we have been convinced that the best way to approach this conversation is professional. We know that race is part of an intersectionality in addition to many other things. I think the time now has ended to whisper about race, right? Dr. Brown, again, has been leading us to this path. A couple of years ago, he set us up by beginning this conversation about love. I said this last time, I'll repeat it. This year in September, he talked to everyone about his experience as a black man from Charlottesville and asked us all to reflect on one question: why school? If that can go down in a city that has fought that nefarious type of upfront, personal, deathly racism for centuries, that could happen in 2018 there. Who are we to think we're above having the conversation here? Right? So, whatever they need, let's decide to give it to them. Right? Whatever they're asking for, let's decide to actually make that a legitimate part of what we professionally do as a $130 million business operation. Right? They're not asking for anything that is above the pall. The last thing I'll say is, I do agree that when this conversation comes up about these tough issues and whether or not a certain group in a certain place should be represented, whether or not a certain curriculum should be used, whether or not a certain book should be used with certain words in it, they're not the problem, they're the solution. I want them to be engaged in wrestling with those complex issues themselves. We can't actually do all of this for them. But by God, we can set them up in project learning communities where they can reach out to us if they need support, but educate themselves and us at the same time. Right? So I apologize to you all again. As I said to some of your leaders, some of your family members, unresponsive bodies actually need to be shocked back to life. This is what happens in hospitals all around the world. We were unresponsive to you. You shocked us. Thank you again for kicking us in the ass.
So who wants to follow out? Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, well, I can't follow Aldrich.
I know.
Possibly, other than to say how much I agree with where you are. And I agree that we need to continue to wrestle with the problem, work on it. I mean, Kirby, we've worked on the report card. I think we heard about a couple of different measures we might want to be looking at and how we can use them as we go ahead. That's part of where my mind went as I listened to the students tonight. So I think I heard some things there that we should be looking at, because we may need to add to that and have some different measures, and again, hold ourselves accountable. I mean, I heard the comment, oh, Miss Maxwell is here. I'm sorry, I just saw you arrive. Former member here. I lost where I was. I'm sorry.
Judy Max does that to people, Brad.
I heard a comment about, thank you, about the makeup of AP classes. And that's one of the measures we've had, and that gentleman said he graduated in, the early 90s. It's quite a different picture today. I wouldn't say it's where he wanted it to be, but it's quite a different picture, and you can see that measure on the website anytime. We hold ourselves accountable to that. So I think we need to work on what the next measures are and then the tools to move us in that direction. I think that's where my mind went. Obviously, nowhere near as well spoken as Eldred. I tried.
You want to go, Sean?
No, but I will.
Don't have to.
No, of course I have to. So again, it's a strange position to be on this side of the table. So an awkward transition, to say the least. But that's the way in which we have structured our board meetings. There'll probably be another conversation about what that looks like in the future. But it's also awkward for me, for any number of years as a 2-decade Ithaca resident, to be one of the people organizing on that side, yelling at the school board. And so trying to negotiate that position. I ran for the school board because of my dissertation research. The title was called, and my apologies, Always Room at the Top, Black Students in Educational Success in Ithaca, New York. And the idea of Always Room at the Top was a quote from ICSD, the gentleman who has a street named after him, who stood at the 1878 convocation of Ithaca High School and said, always room at the top, in promotion of our divisive and or segregated education system. And so talking about sort of the origins of where we began. As part of that research, I tried to create what I call a time loop. I was tired of timelines. As someone said, as if there's progress. And the reality is, I find, and I'm sure many of you do, that time folds back on itself. So I can recall in 2002 being at Boynton Middle School having a conversation about the book War Comes to Willie Freeman, about the use of the word nigger, and having some dialogues about why that may not be the appropriate curricular choice that we should engage in. And what does that then look like under those circumstances? And the reason why I mention that is the argument that I use with my students at Ithaca College is the reason why time loop is instructive is that for many of us the biggest fear is breaking free of that time loop. That's where liberation can be found, but it also brings us to the unknown. And so let's go to the unknown.
Hey, Sean, anything else? You good, Nicole, or?
I feel like I'm with Sean in terms of, I don't really want to say anything, but I feel compelled to say something. As a black woman, as a mother of 3 kids, race is something that I can't remember not talking about. So being in a space right now where I'm being looked to respond to experiences that I've experienced myself or foreshadowing experiences for my 3 kids is emotionally painful. There were a lot of things said tonight. Something that stuck with me was Dr. Nia talking about emancipatory learning. I thought that was an amazing term in terms of teachers and the board, and Dr. Brown thinking about education being liberating, and that teachers need to know that all kids feel freedom, they feel liberty through learning, through theater, through art. Which also means that we have to talk about decolonization. We also have to talk about whiteness. We also have to understand that that's going to be painful. But at the same time, I feel like the district and the board has to be very responsible when talking about whiteness, when talking about racism, because if our white teachers and our white staff are not prepared for that conversation or for that work, it's going to be more painful for everyone that is involved. Having graduated from Ithaca College and having had classes on race and ethnicity and having been in the position where my white professors didn't feel comfortable talking about the very matters that they were teaching, and I was in a place to teach my classmates about things, was very uncomfortable. So I think it would be highly irresponsible for us to jump into a place of creating a race curriculum without thinking about if the culture here is ready for it. But I most definitely think that we do need that curriculum. But I think we also have to understand that it takes time to shift culture. And there are going to be people left behind. There are going to be plenty of teachers, and there are plenty of parents that are not here tonight that have shown resistance. So when we're thinking about this radical imagination of creating this new world, we have to understand that we're going to leave a lot of people behind as well. I mean, we have to be prepared for that, and we also, while all of you are tearing down the school, I think all of you as well need to be thinking about reimagining the school that you want to leave behind for your kids. And I thank you for lighting a fire underneath all of us. And I also think, and I probably should not say this, but I think it was highly irresponsible for us as a board not to have any kind of conversation at the school district, at the schools about what was going on in terms of students just being left to just act like nothing was happening. So I personally will take full responsibility for that, because that was unacceptable by all means. And I would also ask people like you, Valerie, people like you, Kellyanne, to push your staff, to push your mates to talk about these conversations, because none of us are in the schools every day. And as easy as it is, you are.
We are. But it's difficult to point right now. I got to tell you.
So as much as we all want to see this change happen, there are a lot of people that don't. and they're not going to say that out loud. But they're pushing back. They're making it harder for us. And as black and brown people on this board, I would also caution you all to understand how hard it is to be in these positions as black and brown people. We're always, and I would speak for all of us that are here, walking a heavy line, because even though Dr. Brown is a black man, all of his staff is white. Most of his executive team is white. If we want to talk about Obama, if we want to talk about the new head of the Oscars, these are black people that are figureheads. You need the surrounding body to help you push the work, to direct the work. So it's very irresponsible for all of us to make one person accountable without thinking about the hierarchies and the power structures and the fact that I'm not one whole vote. I'm 1/9 of the vote.
Dr. Brown, do you want to do your superintendent's report before we get to the more mundane items?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
So we'll jump and feel free, Dr. Brown.
Since folks are quoting Dr. Nia, maybe I'll start with Dr. Nia's quote. This high school has a chance to do something no other high school has ever done, and I'm with you on that. And as I said at the last meeting, not only now will performing arts always be different in our school district, but also school safety, also curriculum, based on what's happening in our school community. I have some pretty tough skin. Nothing ever really gets to me. I think it came from athletics, but I'm never upset by anything anyone ever says to me until tonight. To think that a young person thought that I didn't see them or understand them has bothered me. And so for that, I'm going to apologize to any young person who think, if you were referring to me, and you didn't call me out, but if you were referring to me or anyone on my team as if I didn't see you or understand you, I want to apologize. And I would say I'm going to make up for that, straight up. Because as I look at Dr. Nia, I see my mother in dozens of school board meetings having the same conversation. And I was that dude right there. I didn't have a device at the time, but I had a piece of paper. And think about how many meetings she dragged me and my brother to have this conversation in a community where we looked at the board and superintendent and no one looked like us. And quite frankly, they waited for us to stop talking so they could get to their business. So, as some folks have already said, I've been fighting this fight a long time, and I find myself in an interesting place because I'm on the other side of the table now. And that's an uncomfortable and emotional place to be. And when I'm doing this, and I'm going to do this for another 20 plus years, and in this community as long as you have me, what I'm going to promise I'm not going to do is have a situation where y'all don't think I saw you. And everything else, I'm going to need your support with. That part I can control. Now, everything else, let's talk about what that looks like, because you asked for us to educate you on how this work happens. It's been 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and a lot has happened since then. A lot we can talk about, a lot we can't talk about. We will have a performance. We will have a new director. We will do it on time. From my mindset, while I also have been, I'll get to that in a second, but while you have, what I also understand is having folks not seeing you and understanding you, but also not feeling safe. And I felt that growing up, but I'm feeling it more now as an adult in this role, not feeling safe for myself and my kids, because as folks are finding out about this issue, because, while some people said we aren't talking about it or trying to hide from it, I would argue against that. We're talking to everyone from the New York Times to the USA Today and to every media outlet in our community about this issue. So no one's hiding. But as we do that and folks click on who's making the decisions about counseling our play, who's leading this effort, they see a black face show up. And they also can find my address. And also know where my kids go to school. So I need y'all to understand, I understand what it feels like to be unsafe, but it hasn't stopped me from having the conversation either. So I trust you that you will understand that I feel you on that. And I'm going to support you on that, like I'm hoping my community will support me too, as many of you have as you've reached out to support me in not feeling safe in that regard. But getting back to how things work, as you want to learn how, as we educate you about how things work, what I won't do, if we talk about anti-racist curriculum. There are a lot, and this ain't tonight to roll out all the things we've been doing and want to do, because there's a lot. Whether you want to see it or not, there's a lot of things we have been doing, and we need to do a lot more. Come to our budget conversations over the next couple of weeks, and you'll see how we're going to be reallocating some resources to do even more. But we're never going to be able to do enough. Let's just be real about that. But we will do more. But what I won't do, and you can be unhappy with me if you want, will be to go out there and say, I want every teacher to talk about race tomorrow. Because I've been in classrooms where the superintendent, because of conversation like this or because of some threat or some issue, it's been mandated. And I can tell you from leading an organization, that's the worst way to go about this work. If we're going after the compliance model, we can do that. I can do that tomorrow, and it will backfire, and you will feel unsafe. If in front of an adult who is unable and unwilling or uncomfortable talking about race, me saying you must do it, not even in 3 weeks, but it takes a year of planning, or at least to have a conversation about what that would look like. So whether you like it or not, that's what it looks like. And for folks who were hoping that that would happen in 2 weeks, I'm just here to tell you that it wouldn't have happened in a way that was appropriate. But we will work on some things to get to a place where folks can't say they're uncomfortable or unwilling to talk about race. That's going to take time, and we spent the last 8 years of my tenure building up to that. And this is what it looks like. We, as a comparison, our state tried to adjust the curriculum/standards for our state that were Eurocentric, white-centric, and it came and had significant pushback from the entire state. So much so that we had to change the name and not even do it. So imagine if I said we're going to change our curriculum to make it more anti-racist. What would happen? So we got to build up to that, y'all, if y'all understand what I'm saying. Most of y'all are opting out of the assessment because of that. Remember that? So if you want to talk real about how changes happen with curriculum and assessment within organizational systems and structures that are, as Dr. Nia said, how are we supporting white supremacy? And I think that was rhetorical, because you know the answer to that, because it's all around us. When are we not? And I would take out the word white and talk about sexism, classism, and all. So if we want to have a real conversation, let's talk about not only race, let's talk about gender, let's talk about class, because we're living in a culture that is oppressive. And as we look to educate young people, we need to talk about oppression in many different ways, and what that looks like in our curriculum. And I'm here, last time I whispered, I'm asking for your patience and time, and I asked for 2 weeks at a time. Some of y'all wrote me the next day saying, that's not, no, we need to do this tomorrow. It just doesn't work like that. And you can like it or not. I'm asking for your patience as we build out a thoughtful approach to anti-racism curriculum, whatever that is. Define what curriculum is. It can be everything from assessment to the lessons. We won't be putting a worksheet in front of your kids to say, and ask the teacher to follow a script. And that's a conversation about racism, if you get what I'm saying. It's going to be thoughtful and well done. But that's my blink reaction, and we'll have more conversations as we have time to prepare and put some thoughts together and examples about what we've done and what we plan to do. But again, I hear you and I see you, and I'm going to make amends for that, young people.
Thanks, Dr. Brown. We appreciate that. We do have a few items that we do need to go through. We're not going to get into a large discussion about what happened tonight. I think Dr. Brown, you just stated that. So I'll give everybody an opportunity. If you don't want to watch us go through and vote on a few consent agenda items and that sort of thing, if you're a student that wants to go study or for something, you can. But
And a couple of the students can leave if they want.
right, so but we're not going to take a break, but you just need to. Would you be Chris, need to speak in anything?
Thank you to IPEI as usual. Thank you to Triad Foundation.
Thank you.
Even though students don't care about it.
You saw a tax certiorari reserve fund appropriation. It was a successful tax cert claim, and so we have to pay our share of that. Pay our share of that back. And the pharmacy benefit. That's about it.
So we're good.
Thank you so much.
Move seconded. Are we good? I mean, good on the consent agenda? All right. All in favor? That's that's Moira, Sean, Rob, Ann, and Nicole, and Chris. Those opposed? Those abstaining? Would be Brad. Eldred has left the room for a minute. We appreciate the cool air that just came in. What else do we have?
Committee updates.
Folks, do you want to defer the committee updates? Do you?
Yeah.
I think that's a yes.
Good.
Do we need a quick one from advocacy? I mean, we'll deal with that next meeting, or you're gonna an update that you need to give us quickly.
I would suggest, because we're going to try to discuss it next time we go around it, is we've got today kind of was a last minute thing on to make some kind of board statement in relationship to gun control and school safety. So just look for it in board docs and then have some kind of, if you have any thoughts.
It's a draft.
Yeah, it's a draft.
It's a draft there. Is the legislature going to vote on something soon, or is it just in the works?
Well, there were some bills in the Senate in particular that prompted this. They're looking, one of the things they're looking at is putting a SRO in every school building in the state. Now, how they intend to pay for it, other than jamming on us.
Other than mandating.
And then mandating it from the school districts.
Right.
I'm not sure, but that's where they were standing on the Senate side anyway. And we wanted to be clear that wasn't something we were looking for.
I think you got it.
Hot. So that was what prompted that. That bill is going to come up in the Senate probably pretty quickly. How fast it'll then go to the Assembly is hard to know.
Then one of the things, completely unrelated to that, but we'll also be putting it on probably for next time, is an update on another letter, an updated letter, or updated resolution in relationship to the BOCES construction and the tax cap, which the governor vetoed last year, and Jeff Madison came to our meeting today. So anyway, they're working on that, and they have a new bill that's been proposed. So that also will work out.
Good, noted.
It passed unanimously last year, but got vetoed. So we're hopeful that will be change based on the governor's only rejection. Pass again this year, and then we may be able to move forward with some of these projects statewide, but TST in particular.
Very good. We'll deal with the rest of the updates hopefully at the next meeting. There's just a few resolutions. Apparently, board members are attending a variety of conferences.
I think we've all passed the first one. Unless I want to make sure.
What, the free speech?
Small city.
No.
I think we're going to pass.
Small city.
No small city for me.
All right. I think everybody's agreed. We've been to that before. I think we've all
They're just
agreed
too.
this year.
They just think too small. I think that's probably. I think that's where we are. All right. So we'll move on to resolution to attend the mental health summit.
And I'll move to approve the expenditure for attendance at the NISBA Mental Health Summit in Woodbury, New York, for Eldred, Meyer, and Leon.
Second.
Second by Moore. Any other questions? All in favor?
Thank you.
Are we good?
Quick question to Jennifer. I know we have to get together and talk about the night before.
Yeah.
Stay at the hotel.
We're putting on the
Okay, Scott.
Yep.
Can we do the,
Yeah.
So that did pass, that works everyone.
I'll move the resolution for Moira to attend the policy workshop in White Plains
No, I'm gonna do it in Rochester.
in Rochester.
Okay. Rochester. Anybody else want her to go?
Yeah, second.
What are the dates? What are the dates of that one?
The Rochester one is on the 20th of March.
March, Rochester.
Rochester. All of the ones were on Tuesdays.
It's a Tuesday.
But it ends at 12:30, so.
Oh, it's
Yeah, it's like 9 to 12:30. It's 3.5 hours.
That resolution, I'm not guaranteeing we'll go that day, but in order to have that on there, I may join you.
We will not stop you from attending a policy workshop. All right.
You can add Brad's name without objection.
I still need to go. Who took the motion? I apologize.
I made the motion.
And I second.
Even though your name, but it's okay.
It's
Nobody else would, so. All right, so moved, seconded, all in favor? That's everyone. And do we have any other discussion items that we have to get to? What was that about? Are we good?
All right, Dr. Brown, you don't want to talk about it?
I do want to talk about that. Can we take just 5 minutes to get a little bit of direction on school safety?
That's what I thought you wanted to do.
Yes.
Meaning here right now, right?
Yes,
okay.
in a public session.
All right.
As I'm hearing from our community, our conversations have been going on for several years now about securing. I know we have the smart bond, we're going to be doing some things with security cameras, electronic entryways, but the very non-technical way to make our buildings somewhat more secure would be to lock front doors. And that is a contentious topic in this community, as some school communities want locked front doors and some do not want locked front doors. I wish to begin conversations with our building principals and their school communities around what it would look like if front doors were locked. Just starting the conversation there. And I wanted to, I guess, inform you and also get some sense from you whether or not it's okay for us to go down that path while we're waiting on these more secure measures that are going to be coming to us through the Smart Bond Initiative. And it may take us a couple weeks. I promise you we will vet it through our communities, our PTA councils, our PTAs, the staff at these individual buildings, but I want to engage in the conversation as a temporary solution to what we know is a long-term fix.
Oh, Greg.
Well, I'd be one of the ones who, when this came up, 5 years ago, was not interested in locking the doors. I don't like what it says about a school, what it says about a school community. And it's been 5 years, there's been changes, I'm willing to have the conversation. And we did allow one school to do this. I guess I'm clearly not going to stand in the way if that's what people want to do. I'm disappointed in what it says about a community and about its schools that we feel we've got to be locked in. So I continue to struggle with the concept, but I understand, and they're certainly not going to stand in the way if the majority of the school communities, that's what they want. We'll support that. That's where I'm at. We get to the SRO conversation, and
I'm not prepared to open that up.
Okay, because I am not ready to stand aside on that.
It's one step at a time.
But we're certainly going to expect policy procedures in place at those various buildings. I mean, it just.
Yeah, I mean, we have our safety plan, our district safety plan, our building safety plan. We're mandated to do 8 fire drills per year, 4 intruder lockdown drills. every school has done, and some students may be confused, and some staff and parents, is we don't typically call it a lockdown drill anymore. We do shelter in place. We do different approaches to it. Sometimes they're planned, oftentimes they are not. So some of these shelter in place drills have happened at our high school, for example, this year. Multiple shelter in place drills that students didn't know they were planned. It just happened. So they were waiting for us to announce, like we do with fire drills, where we do 8 in one day. It didn't happen in that way. And a lot of the measures we take aren't communicated to our public in general also for security reasons. So just to give that folks who may be still listening.
So, Sean, go ahead. I'm just going to reiterate what Brad said. I also, when we had this conversation 5 years ago, particularly thinking about some of the smart bond funding that we were having, was not a fan of locking front doors for the very same reasons about the kind of non-inviting community that it has at a number of our schools. I did write to some board members the other day that I'm realizing some other issues that I may be becoming a dinosaur, and the culture is shifting, and so I'm aware that my own personal preference for what school community should look like should not stand in the way of individual schools deciding for themselves. And so, without question, you should begin these conversations with our school communities to see what they feel will be the best way forward. And I will support whatever our school communities decide.
Go ahead. I appreciate the fact that everyone around this table knows this conversation is going to get much more intense at some point. Now we're talking about something relatively simple. But in terms of culture, I think we can all agree that when the first significant incident in a school happened was a very long time ago. And one of the reasons why these instances keep happening is because since that time, we've sold 2 million more of those type of weapons, right? To the average American who is not trying to modify that semi-automatic weapon to turn it into a weapon of war and death, that is replacing the typical rifle, right? It just is. I don't know anybody actually of my friends who shoot who don't have an AR-15. Right? Which is not a single type of gun. It's manufactured by at least 100 companies in this country, 3 of which are trading publicly. So, as with anything else, in the 70s, Saturday night specials, right? Of course now more of these incidents are going to take place with these guns because these guns are ubiquitous. Right? So once we get into the heavier conversation about the language around assault weapons, around what we're asking our state to support in terms of background checks, resisting the techniques that can turn these weapons into weapons of truly mass destruction. Those are going to be chances again for us to educate a population who might think they actually know what the hell they're talking about, and they probably don't. If our state and federal legislatures are not going to protect us from nuts who want to turn those rifles into machine guns, the least we can do is have a conversation about locking the damn front door.
There you go.
Quick feedback, Dr. Brown. So there you go.
I got it all down.
You got it all down. Taking copious notes. All right. So that was the other discussion item for tonight, correct? No other discussion items.
One question, the demography thing, is it still tomorrow? The call with the demographer?
Still
What
set.
time is that? What time? Oh, all right. Okay.
Can I call in as well? Can you send me that information? I don't think I'll be able to get down here in time.
That would be helpful because I don't know that it's on my calendar, so that would be great.
What time is deadline?
We're having a conference call with the demographer prior to the next facility meeting to have a conversation about the demography study.
Jennifer could just make sure that info gets pushed out.
I created a Google Calendar event and emailed that out.
We now need a number to call in though.
Yeah, I'll get that from Mike.
Yep.
The art show down here on Friday evening too. We'll send that out. I wanted to say something about that. The attendant well and support. We talked about that. It's going to be here in this building.
This building on
In this
Friday?
building, young people's art is going to be
What time?
I will send it to you. I think
Right,
it's
just
about
give us-
5.
I don't know about that, but I don't know if LACS said it, but their musicals this weekend, they're doing the Addams Family.
Yeah, she did.
Okay, I couldn't hear.
Yeah, I know, yeah, she did announce it.
And then there's a big choral concert
Choral
Friday night.
concert, 7:30 Friday as well.
Did we win tonight, Judy? Did we win?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, it was
Yes.
close, but it.
That was,
Yeah, I
that was tough.
missed a basketball game, I know.
Playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. That time of year, Dr.
So
Jones.
where do you go next?
I'll find out.
Nice sweatshirt, dude.
She's got it. All right, so are we good? Anything else? Have we had enough for tonight? Anything else? We're moved, seconded, and without objection, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
I was asking about doubling up. Looking for a double up.